Latest on the Omaha streetcar project and efforts to expand it before it's even been designed. An Omaha state senator is asking the legislature to kick in $100 million to the project. Brian Mastry joins us now live in the newsroom with the reasons why. Brian, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dave. We've all heard this, right? The city says the streetcar will pay for itself for the route from Midtown to downtown, meaning because a streetcar boosts the value of what it's near, a bunch of businesses will want to build next to it to take advantage of the benefits. That's the math of it paying for itself. Now, up to now, we've seen the route. It's the dark green on this map. We'll zoom in a little to it, essentially going down Farnham westbound, Harney eastbound, up 10th Street in the Old Market to the arena, and there's a little loop in that area. It has options for an expansion. Omaha Senator Justin Wayne wants the line to extend to the airport. It's the blue line on this map going north on 19th Street, then a little jog to 16th, all the way up to Fort, and then Fort goes straight to Eppley Airfield, mostly through neighborhoods. Remember, the legislature's already committed $400 million in rescue plan dollars last year to transform North Omaha. Organizers believe this is a logical next step while tying all of it to affordable housing.
One, to get public transit into an area that needs it the most. Two, to invest in an area that we've already said is an economic development gold mine by putting some money already there last year. And I guess the third thing is to create a sustainable, affordable housing solution. Because every year we're down here, we are talking about affordable housing, and the state just cannot continue to pick up that tab.
At least two members of Mayor Stothard's economic development team also spoke in support of the plan Friday afternoon before the Appropriations Committee. Remember, the original streetcar plan called for eventual expansion into North and South Omaha, but that seemed years down the road. This plan, if approved by the legislature, would put that route in North Omaha and to the airport, where a good chunk of those rescue dollars are already set to go.